Okay, I am so excited today to have with me as a guest one of my great living heroes, Bishop Malkhaz Songulashvili, who is as I say, a living hero, a dear friend, and also the bishop of the Peace Cathedral in Tiblisi, Georgia, a Baptist church there in the heart of a very thriving metropolitan city in the midst of a war-torn region of the world, and someone who is a great witness to indeed peace and what we often say here at Broadway, joy with justice. And Malkhaz, I just wish to welcome you and say it's so good to see you, my friend.
Thank you kindly. I'm honored to be with you, and thank you for taking interest in the cause we are committed to.
Of course, Malkhaz is the one of two pastors and bishops there at the Peace Cathedral. And the Peace Cathedral is one of the recipients of Broadway's 2023 Global Pentecost offering, which will take place here in a week and a half in the West, in 2 weeks and a half in the East. And Malkhaz, we're so happy to have the opportunity to support your ministry. And I recognize that you've preached at Broadway an incredible sermon back in 2018. And we will hope to maybe provide a link to that as well. But we know that a lot has changed here at Broadway since 2018 and really across the world with the global pandemic and a lot of new people coming to church. And so there may be people who are not as familiar with who you are and the work of the cathedral. And I hope that we could just begin there by you telling us a little bit about all of what the cathedral is about.
Thank you. First of all, very warm greetings to all people at Broadway. I've got very warm and fond memories of my time with you, and I hope that sometime I'll be able to see you in person. Speaking about the Peace Cathedral, it is a church, a sort of mother church in the former Russian Empire, where the Baptist movement started in 1867. And from Tbilisi, Georgia, the Baptist movement spread all over the Russian Empire, South Ukraine, even Moscow and St. Petersburg. So we are dealing with this metropolitan church with a history that has made impact on the Baptist movement throughout the former Soviet Union and the Russian Empire. But for the time being, it's a church, Protestant church in the Orthodox-dominated culture, deeply committed to justice, peace, and reconciliation among cultures, religions, and variety of subcultures. It has been in the genes of the Peace Cathedral to react on every expression of ugliness with a project of beauty. And it has been happening over the generations. We were persecuted under Tsars, we were persecuted under Soviets, we were persecuted under ethno-religious nationalists at the beginning of the early 90s, but we have committed this allegiance to the gospel by preaching it, by acting it out, by serving poor, by serving sidelined and marginalized.
And you do that so beautifully, and have had such a long legacy as a church of what I would call resistance, but you part of your resistance is through acts of beauty and both aesthetic and also moral. And I see beauty behind you, Malkhaz. I know that's an important part of what the cathedral is all about, and also, as I would say, moral beauty as well, which is really in the face of the world's violence, how you confront violence with love and with humanity. I wish you would say just a little bit about that, because you're the one who really got me first thinking about beauty as a moral concept.
Well, it started many years ago. Well, there are lots of examples I can bring out, but something that has made enormous impact on me personally was the war between Russia and Chechnya in late 90s. Chechens had been traditional enemies of Georgia for many decades and even centuries. And when the war broke out, the only country where they could come was Georgia, because Chechnya is a landlocked country with only border with Georgia. So they started to come in thousands, and nobody wanted to help them because they had been our traditional enemies. So then we decided to react on this traditional hatred between our nations by the acts of beauty, both moral and aesthetic, as well as practical. So we went to the refugee camps. We served the poor and needy. We also encouraged children to draw and paint what they had experienced in the war, and received thousands of drawings and paintings, and also we received some little stories by young children who had experienced the war. So this is what we have learned, that whenever the ugliness come up, we need to react to it with projects of beauty, both moral, aesthetic, cultural, and social. And that has been edifying us and helping us to cope with some atrocities and bigotry, especially in about 10 years ago, when there was a rise of, incredible rise of homophobia in Georgia, when about dozens of people, members of the LGBTQ community, as well as their relatives, were attacked by 45,000 people, clergy, bishops, archbishops, metropolitans, monks, nuns, who came out to kill. And then we thought we had to react to it. And we obviously made a public statement, but what we did was we wrote a liturgy, Eucharistic liturgy, in confrontation with bigotry done in the name of religion and in the name of my God and your God. And this liturgy has become sort of treasure, both for our church and many friends of ours, both in Georgia and abroad, who are celebrating liturgy in order to affirm beauty, moral, spiritual, aesthetic, in confrontation with ugliness, social, political, religious.
That is so inspiring to me personally, Malkhaz. And I want you to know, I haven't told you this, but Broadway is in the midst of rewriting our vision and mission statement as a congregation. And we have very intentionally included the word beauty in our language because of the inspiration of you and the Peace Cathedral and your work in confronting the ugliness of inhumanity with the beauty of humanity. So you are making an impact, of course, globally. We already knew that, but I wanted you to know that your witness is making an impact in our proposed vision and mission statement here at Broadway. And I just want you to know what inspiration you are.
I'm humbled to hear that. And as you know, I love Broadway. I love all of you, and very pleased to hear that we are somehow spiritually connected through the beauty, moral, and aesthetic.
Indeed. Okay, you were talking about refugee crisis, which is at the heart of much of the work of the Peace Cathedral. And of course, now that region, and particularly the Republic of Georgia, is currently facing a massive both political and also refugee crisis with the events taking place in Ukraine. For those who may not have a map in front of them, the Republic of Georgia borders both Ukraine and also Russia as well. And so you are right there in the midst and have received many refugees coming, I presume from both countries. But I wish you would tell us a little bit about how you are responding currently to the crisis facing the region.
Before the war in Ukraine, we had a small influx of refugees from Russia. And these were people of art, music, culture, writers, filmmakers, who realized that something wrong was going to happen in their land. There were also members of the LGBTQ community, religious minorities, who felt that something ugly was going to happen in Russia. But when the war broke out last year, we saw the influx of Ukrainian refugees, mainly women, children, elderly, sick. Some of them used Georgia as a stepping stone to go to third countries because they were not sure that Russians would not be able to reach them out. So, and of course, the center which we built in 1999 to welcome refugees from Chechnya became the shelter for the refugees from Ukraine. Some of them used Georgia as a stepping stone to go somewhere else. Some of them stayed on. So we are working closely with hundreds of refugees from Ukraine and helping them to find their way, to have themselves food and medicine, and also find some jobs both at our center and elsewhere. We have also created, believing in beauty, aesthetic beauty, we also created the art shop where they can produce some artifacts to sell them and make some living for themselves and other refugees. After the recruitment policy of the Kremlin, we saw another influx of refugees last year, but this time from Russia. And these were not people of art who felt insecure under the Kremlin, but these were ordinary men who tried to escape recruitment by the Russian army. So as a result of that, we saw an influx of 300,000 young men to Georgia, wow, escaping recruitment. And most of them came and settled in Tbilisi. And Tbilisi is a city of 1 million population. And if you can imagine that you've got 1 million population and you've got influx of about 300,000 people. And it made enormous impact on social and political life in the country. On one hand, we are very happy that these 300,000 people are not fighting Ukrainians in the war. But on the other hand, we realize that their presence in Georgia can create enormous tension, political as well as social. Economically, a lot of people are suffering because usually these people who came as refugees from Russia belong to higher and middle class people, and they are able to afford good apartments, housing, food, etc. And now we see a lot of people, Georgians, suffering because of lack of accommodation, lack of food, and prices on food and goods have skyrocketed since they started coming to Georgia. So we are dealing with this painful experience, but we are trying to work both with Ukrainians and with Russians. As you know, we are very keen on liturgy, and last Maundy Thursday, when we wash feet of people, we usually select people from different layers of the society, and we are bringing different Muslim leaders and Jewish leaders, Yazidi leaders to wash their feet. But this year we have also brought refugees from Russia and Ukraine and wash their feet in affirmation of our desire to serve everybody. And it was a signal that was taken very kindly, both by Russians and Ukrainians, with whom we have been working very closely since the war started.
That's a prime example of the ways in which you confront ugliness with the beauty of liturgy, and it speaks on a very powerful human, subconscious, spiritual level that bears profound witness, particularly in places like the one where you were living. I remember my first real introduction to you was in an interview that you gave right in the midst of the time in, what was it, 2008? Yes, yeah. When your own country was attacked by Russia, and you taking communion, bread and wine, and serving Russian soldiers who were occupying your own country. And it was a profoundly, profoundly bold and deeply Christian witness, which you continue. So thank you so much for that, Malkhaz.
Thank you kindly. Thank you.
Let me say also, you have a long tradition as a church of witness, and I think your family speaks to the power of this boldness that you have had. Though I have seen, in having read the history of the cathedral, the ways in which the vision for the cathedral is somewhat shifted, transformed, expanded over the past 50 or 70 years, particularly. And I think that's particularly so in the vision, in the Baptist vision that you have, which is a very unique and distinctive one. But I want you to tell us a little bit about the project that we are specifically raising money for here at Broadway, which is, I think itself, a vision of beauty in the midst of so much interfaith violence that takes place and disintegration. You have a dream of a chapel where Christians, Muslims, and Jews can all find sanctuary and refuge. So tell us a little bit about the dream of the cathedral.
Obviously, it is highly unusual project for a Christian or a Baptist church to create sacred spaces under the roof of their church. But we have seen recently, for last 2 decades, rise of Islamophobia and unprecedented rise of anti-Semitism. And again, we thought we had to do something about it. Just preaching and talking about interfaith dialogue was not merely enough. We had to give a tangible sign of possibility of living peacefully under the same roof, literally, without conflict. So we started raising funds to create these 2 sacred spaces. One is going to be called Peace Mosque, another is going to be called Peace Synagogue. The project is progressing slowly but steadily. We made our lives a bit more complicated than it was necessary by introducing a principle. If you are a Muslim, you cannot make financial contribution to the mosque, but you can make contribution to the synagogue. And if you are a Jew, you can't make contribution to the synagogue, you can make contribution to the mosque. So this slowed the process down, but we saw some amazing transformation even through the fundraising. For instance, several months ago, Israeli ambassador came to the Peace Cathedral, having learned that we are building the synagogue under the roof of the church, and he wanted to make contribution. And we had to say, sorry, you can't. You can make contribution to the mosque, but you can't make contribution to the synagogue. He went back, rather disappointed, but 6 months later, he wrote a letter saying that he got approval from his government and he's going to donate 6,000 euros to the Peace Mosque, which was rather remarkable to see impact of this project, not only in the country and beyond, making impact on thinking, on how can we live peacefully, how can we relate to each other. So we, because of the economical hardship and the lack of time to raise enough funds, and whatever we raised was not enough to buy building materials, and the prices on building materials have been increasing recently. Sure. We are at the last stage to complete these 2 beautiful places. They are going to be small. These are not big places, but the significance of these places could not be underestimated, because we have seen some top-ranking Muslim clergy from Iran, for instance, who made contribution to the synagogue, but they asked, please never tell anybody because our heads will roll if they know that we made contribution to this project. This is to say that people take this project seriously.
Yes.
And it has transformative effect on many people, and we hope that it will continue to nurture interfaith peace and harmony. And we have also come to realize that we need to shift our understanding of mission of the church. Instead of looking to convert people into our faith, we have decided to look after the people of different faiths and learn from their spiritual experiences, enrich our spiritual experiences from their experiences. And also, whenever they are open to that, we are happy to share our experiences without faintest desire to undermine their integrity, undermine their spirituality. And we are keen disciples to see God working and acting in different religions and cultures.
That is so beautiful, Malkhaz. You are such an inspiration. Let me ask, just in a practical way, the current stage for the dream of the chapel. You have now completed what portions?
Well, for the time being, most of the mosque has been completed. We even got carpet, which we are going to lay whenever we are able to. Perhaps 90% of the Peace Synagogue has been completed. We need to complete other bits and pieces to be able to open this place. And the part of this Peace Mosque and Synagogue, we are building a fellowship hall, which is called Abraham's Hall. We are people from different groups, Muslims and Jews and Christians, can come together to have some tea and some food together to have fellowship. So we still need a lot of funds to complete Abraham's Hall, but as far as the Peace Synagogue and Peace Mosque are concerned, we have made incredible progress.
That is so wonderful. I was just reading this morning, Malkhaz, in Genesis, where it says that through Abram, all families and all nations would find their blessing. And you are an embodiment of and vessel of that blessing. So we celebrate you. We're so excited that you are a recipient again of our 2023 Pentecost offering. And we are looking forward to Broadway participating strongly in this beautiful project of love and reconciliation and of peace. And so thank you for all that you do, Malkhaz, and also all that you are. You are an amazing witness to Christ and to God and Christ in the world, and to the vision of the beloved community. So thank you.
Thanks very much. And I'd like to share with you a dream, a part of my dream, that sometime I'll see Broadway people coming to Georgia, to the Peace Cathedral, so that we can celebrate this fellowship and deep bond that has been forged between us since 2008.
Yeah, I share that dream and vision. We're going to make that happen, Malkhaz. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Great to talk with you. Thanks so much.
Likewise.